This is Benchmark Happenings, brought to you by Benchmark Home Loans, with Jonathan Tipton and Steve Reed. Now your host, Christine Reed.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode. And today, I am so excited to have Andy Rogers from Performance Medicine with us. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you so much for having me. This is top notch. Top notch.
I'm so excited because I don't know, most people don't know this, but I'm a nurse by trade. And so healthcare and holistic treatment of patients is near and dear to my heart. And I'm actually a patient of yours,
Yes.
Andy. And so, I always like to bring people on here that, you know what, I know you, I know what you do, I know how you guys practice at Performance Medicine. And so I'm just proud to bring you on this show and to really highlight what you guys do and what makes you different from traditional medicine.
I love it. I love talking about this subject too, but also to be here in our own community where we grew up. And we're lucky in East Tennessee that we get to do stuff like this. I think it's an anomaly, and it makes East Tennessee even more like a more special place to be.
It really is. And that's what birthed this podcast of Benchmark Happenings. It's all the great things
You're
of
setting
East Tennessee.
the benchmark, right? This is the podcast. You are setting the mark, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So thanks, Andy. And, Performance Medicine has been around for quite some time. And your dad, Dr. Tom Rogers, traditionally a family practice medicine, saw such a need to provide a different type of care for individuals.
Exactly. So he started this company in 2007.
Okay.
So a little, I guess we're going on nearly 17 years. We're almost hitting the 20-year mark, which is really great. This is right around the time that I was graduating from high school with your daughter, which is awesome.
With Brittany.
Yes. So around that time, he was kind of in a pivotal change in his career because he went to a particular conference that we're going to talk about a little bit later.
Oh, yes.
The A for M conference. A for M is the leader in anti-aging and preventative medicine. And he went on to that conference on a whim. He just needed to go, and it changed his life because he thought this is the way that we should be practicing medicine.
Amen.
He was very burnt out, though he worked his butt off. He worked, but he was burnt out on the type of care. He would have seconds to be with a patient, searching for codes on an EMR. He cannot type. God love him, but he can't type. So it's like, I'm stuck being here on a computer when I want to be here with the patient.
Yes.
He has two kids, one of which is me with type 1 diabetes. My sister and I both have type 1, and my grandparents had dementia and Alzheimer's. So we thought, something is off here. We're not doing something right. And so he wanted to take away the middleman. He wanted to take away the insurance companies and work directly with patients to say, what is the root cause of your symptoms right now? And how do we get the best quality of your life and not quantity?
Oh, absolutely. And I say this all the time, and it's so foreign to other people who are practicing medicine.
It's so foreign.
Andy,
it's not talk.
It's
not
so
talked
about prevention. And I have my own health history of autoimmune disease and how I overcame it through diet, lifestyle changes, exercise, healthy food. We're just not taught that. So, and I love how you've explained how you differ from the others and you cut that middleman out. So you're really focusing on the patient. And I know my personal experience, I can tell you that you and I sit down together, we go over everything, my lab work and how am I doing? And it's just great. You just don't get that service.
And where do you want to be? I talk about that in the room a lot of, what is a snapshot? This lab tells us a snapshot of where you are right now with maybe particular symptoms that you have. Where do we want to be? Where do we want to be in 2 weeks from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What are our real goals? And we kind of get to tailor medicine, and medicine should be tailored. If anything I've learned from medicine is that it is not one size fits all. And that's what traditional medicine does to try to create standards of care, to say that everyone in X situation needs Y or Z. Really, You need A, B, a little bit of T. It's so specific to the patient.
It really
and we need
is.
time for it.
And people are so unique and different in how God created each of us.
Absolutely.
And so we're not a recipe. We're not an algorithm.
No. And in fact, what we try to do, and even with the way that I lead our medical department, and I'm thinking to future, not just with health, but what is the future of our business too, and how we optimize our providers and their health. Our big thing is that we all want to play in the same key. So if you're playing a song in the same key, but you're playing your own song, that's where I feel like medicine can be. It's that it all sounds like together, congruous, but you're still playing your own song.
Yeah, absolutely. And medicine, it's beautiful, and it's so rewarding. And unfortunately, the systems that have been put in place have taken that desire and that love away from individuals.
You're right. It's a system.
And so, Andy, how did you get started in functional integrative medicine?
So I
Tell us your story.
I totally bypassed. I cut the line. I did. I had one of those Disney passes, fast passes to the back.
Oh, man, you're so lucky. The fast pass.
I got the fast pass, and Dad has really opened up that opportunity for me. So I would say that I grew up with it, but it was really around high school that he opened up the functional medicine, performance medicine, which is within functional. We call it integrative because of Dad's history in family practice. We blend a lot of the things that come from traditional allopathic medicine through prescription pharmaceuticals, the best of that world, with holistic, old school medicine, listen to the patient, and we just have an opportunity to blend. So I went to PA school at Mercer. I did my undergrad at UT and did biochemistry and theater.
Oh, my goodness.
Didn't know I wanted to do the acting stuff first. I put myself in a car and moved to LA for 3 years. And
I can see you doing that.
I love it. And I still do it locally. I do it in Jonesboro locally. I open a show next week.
Awesome.
Tons of fun stuff. Another great community for us is the theater community, and healing too with art and theater. But I went to Mercer. I thought I wanted to do endocrinology and work with type 1 diabetes because of my personal history with it. And really, it was a very serendipitous moment where Dad needed a provider for the Johnson City location. I happened to be in town before graduation, and I asked a realtor at the time, who was a bartender, if there was a big, beautiful white house in the Tree Streets or Watauga, I'd move back and work here. And she had the house we're in right now off Watauga. So it was very divine intervention that I came back and started working with him.
Everything fell into place.
It was meant to be. I probably would not have done it if it were not for that moment. And Dad got the house the next day. I was like, I'm coming back. And it's been the best decision, especially during the COVID pandemic. That was the best decision I could not have foreseen, and I'm very, very lucky. And I still get to treat a lot of diabetes too without just being within the endocrinology route.
Yes, absolutely, because so many people are diabetic.
So many people. Oh, so many people.
Oh, so what do you think? Why are Americans struggling so much with their health? I mean, we are the most unhealthy nation in the world.
And the wealthiest.
And
Is
the
that not
wealthiest.
craziest? That's so crazy.
But the most obese.
Yes.
So I know we could talk about this for days, Andy.
I'd say in a nutshell that we've created an environment with our work, with our food sourcing, and with our lifestyles that's not conducive to optimal health. I just went to Europe last summer and I'm on a continuous glucose monitor. So I check my sugar every 5 minutes and having type 1, that's very common to do. My blood sugars were perfect in the UK. Perfect. And I ate not nearly what I would eat here. My skin felt great. Barely went over 160 if you're familiar with glucose numbers. I felt amazing. As soon as I landed back in Atlanta, my skin started itching. My sugars were in the 200s or 300s. I think a lot of it is that we're a very young country with not long histories of good food practices, that we are pretty much based on quantity, not quality. So I think a lot of our food sourcing And they call it this low dose stress, this low dose heat that we need to put in time at the office. So much we're built on time and not on taking time to relax, to rest, to enjoy, to have fun. And the American lifestyle is really what I think is contributing to the obesity epidemic. And a lot of it, I think, is our food sourcing. I experience that difference. I have a lot of patients that are from Europe. They'll go back to Spain, lose 20 pounds, drinking wine the entire time, and come back here and be on keto and gain weight. I think it's just a multifactorial combination.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately.
And it is unfortunate. And it's like you try so hard to get that healthy food.
Yes. And it costs more, and you really have to be on it here. You have to almost be strict when you're here in America. If you're trying to avoid it. And the diabetes thing, a lot of it too deals with insulin resistance. Insulin responds to 90 to 100% of carbohydrates, which is why people will go on low carb diets. But the insulin molecule wants to store fat. So there's a lot of insulin resistance, not necessarily with diabetes, which means that there's glucose dysregulation for listeners that are unfamiliar with it. So there's, even though they're in the same pocket or in the same field, they have different thresholds for diagnosis. And so all of it contributes to weight and not feeling good. When your blood sugar is in the 300s, you don't feel good. When you have a lot of insulin out, you feel very inflamed. So we almost have to make insulin work a lot better in this country and be very strict and work harder for less results. Is that not crazy?
Oh, it is. It really is. And and there's so many people who struggle and that.
Too often get dismissed. How often in the room have you heard, like, just diet and exercise? That's your treatment plan is diet, exercise? Well, what do you want me to eat? How often do you want me to exercise? Do you want me to change my job?
So do you think, and so let's talk about obesity, Andy.
Sure.
I really think you guys address it more than you need to eat less, you need to exercise. So someone comes to you for nutritional counseling or help with their obesity. What are the issues and the root causes that you're going to address, other than just giving them a script to eat less, exercise?
That's a great question too. There's kind of three. I put it in this almost like triangle tripod of the three most common risk factors for obesity that we see in this area: thyroid dysfunction or suboptimal thyroid function. You really have to go in depth with the thyroid. Most often in traditional allopathic medicine, you're testing a TSH, a brain hormone, talking to the thyroid, and an inactive hormone called T4. That's it. And if you're lucky, you get those two. A lot just take TSH, which is variable. Then, but you can go in depth and say, are you converting from T4 into T3? Active thyroid? Is there Hashimoto's and antibodies? Do you have a perfect reverse T3 to T3 ratio? You can get in depth, and if it's not perfect and the patient has symptoms, treat it. And 99 times out of 100, they feel better. And two, a lot of the times too, the number one thing, I'll tell you before I continue that.
Yes.
The one thing Dad told me to do before going into the room, before I ever started practicing, he walked me in, he said, the number one thing is listen to your patient. He says that's what my granddad was. He was a surgeon, and he was a very thorough surgeon. He told my dad that before practicing. Dad told me that before I practiced. Listen to your patient, because he said 99 times out of 100, they're right and they know what's wrong with them, and do what they say. He says you'll be fooled once or twice, but 99 times out of 100, they know what's wrong with them. And so often we think we know better than the patient, and it's not true.
It isn't.
And the second thing is do something. Do something. If it is really diet and exercise or not any sort of like traditional medication, explain why and give them a plan. Do something.
Right.
So that's the same thing with weight, that we do something. I tell people everybody talks about Ozempic and Mounjaro, these new GLP-1s and GIPs that help people lose weight, but are indicated for diabetes because they're in that same realm, insulin resistance and diabetes. It works. A lot of it is, I tell people, I'm just pushing you down the hill and getting you a sled. Now, how far that sled goes depends on what you do too at home, but this is at least something to get you down the hill. Let's get moving in the right direction, the direction you want to move. But rolling out thyroid thoroughly, looking at insulin resistance and not just glucose and A1C, looking at intact insulin, C-peptide, how active is your insulin? I have seen A1C be perfect, opposite of diabetes, like golden. and insulin be through the roof. And this poor patient was 200 pounds over, to probably 200 to 300 pounds over where she should have been. And no one would do anything for her because she didn't have diabetes. So looking at insulin resistance. And then the third is looking at your hormones. In the aging population, we don't like to say old. Old, no, that's not a thing.
There's no
aging, the wise population.
Yes.
The wise.
Well preserved, I like to call it. Like a fine bottle of wine.
100%. The taste is so much richer. When we age and we lose those vital sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, weight just tends to pile on. Estrogen redistributes fat. So when estrogen is high, a lot of people think estrogen dominance is weight gain, but really estrogen in the right quantity or a ratio to progesterone is where you find the right weight balance. And testosterone for men and for women too.
Yes.
Testosterone hates fat, loves muscle. And so really addressing that and being willing to go into the hormone segment, that's a huge part of the three that I'd like to say, at least rule these three out, see where your lifestyle is, and let's push it down the hill. Let's give you a sled and let's start moving in that direction so that you feel what weight loss actually feels like.
And you feel better. It affects your mood, your attitude. And you know, we're looking at people holistically. You know, mentally, you know, psychologically, not only physically, but spiritually, what's going on and addressing all those things. And so if we can get them, like you said, on a sled going down the hill, then things are going to start happening as they see, hey, there's some changes. I can actually do this.
When you see it come off in the first couple of weeks, you're like, I can't. This is actually something is working. And when it doesn't, the thing that I love and I stress with each of our providers and part of our training and onboarding is that come back to the main road. I tell patients that we're your passenger, you're the driver. I can tell you the exits we can take. Let's try them out and then come back to the main road if it doesn't work for you. And let's try another one.
Do something
People
else.
get discouraged if a Zipic didn't work for you. Try something else.
There's all kinds of things. And I love the fact that you mentioned hormone therapy.
We love,
We're
the
going to talk
hormones.
about
I love
hormones,
hormones.
Andy, because there are so many myths around hormones.
Yes.
And I love your dad's podcast, Common Sense MD, weekly podcast.
Yes.
I encourage everyone out there to listen to it. It's great. I can't wait till the next episode comes out. I've learned so much. But hormone therapy, we have a generation of women who have been underserved because of some crazy study that came out. And so let's kind of dispel some of the myths about hormone therapy and what's the difference between the synthetic and natural hormones. Big difference, right?
Huge difference. This is the cusp. And I feel like if we were to say anything that performance medicine does, we're really primary hormone replacement therapy. That's our bread and butter. We know it well. We study it all the time. Thank you for mentioning Dad's podcast, Common Sense MD.
I love it.
He's so proud of it too.
He
I
should
love him.
be.
He's proud of it. But it makes us stay on our toes. If your medical provider is not continually staying up to date on medicine and trying alternative stuffs and reading. He reads a book every 2 days. So keeping up with him is impossible, but he makes it in these. So I'm very proud. Yes, please, listeners, listen to that podcast too.
Yeah, it is great. And I'm being a patient at Performance, and Andy, you take care of me. I'm on hormone replacement therapy.
Yes.
And it has made a huge difference in not only my overall health, but my weight loss, my muscle tone, gaining muscle. So anyway, let's talk about that because I think people need to really be educated and not be afraid of hormones.
Absolutely. I think hormones need to be done well. So you need to go to a provider that knows what they're doing. General difference between synthetic and the natural, or what we would call bioidentical. Synthetic means that it's man-made, so that they've added something to a natural compound. That way you can actually market it and sell it. So that's what gets into studies, is that a drug company can't own progesterone because progesterone's already made, but they can own progestin because it's synthetic and they made it and can market it and indicate it for a use. So what happens? And then bioidentical means made from plants to look like what you naturally make. So progesterone, estrogen, they're made from yams. So that's
much better for you.
And it's what It's what you're missing or can supplement. So I always tell patients, especially women, because the big risk that people talk about is cancers, breast cancers, endometrial uterine cancer. I tell them, we're not putting back anything into your body that you haven't made your entire life. We're putting the same thing back. There's a risk that if something that is in your body just happens to love estrogen and we put more estrogen in, it can make that grow because it's feeding off of it. But staying up to date on mammograms, thermograms, routine visits from diagnostics for cancer screenings is a good thing. But the bioidenticals had not been shown to have the breast cancer risk that the synthetic hormones have. The study you mentioned is called Women's Health Initiative. It was done over 10 years with 10,000 patients. They found the literal risk is 8 more cases per 10,000 women of breast cancer and stroke PE. They also, in the headline from that was hormones cause cancer. That's all it was. There was no in-depth study about
so misleading. It's so misleading.
And scary.
Yes.
So hormones were very commonly done prior to this. And then I believe it was from 2002 to 2012 that this was, or it either ended in 2002, but they took everyone off of hormones and the way it's taught. So I came out of PA school in 2019. There's one slide on menopause, and I loved my PA school. It was an amazing school. I still do adjunct lecturing there, but traditional medicine, one slide on menopause. And how important is menopause to women? It's the most important thing. The change. And we get one slide. And the suggestions too, looking at it from I would say this is not traditional, but I feel like it should be the standard of care is that if there's a hysterectomy on a slide and within the ACOG recommendations for hormone replacement therapy, do not give progesterone if there's no uterus, because that's the primary target. But your progesterone is your immune system. It's your mood. There's receptors for progesterone all over your body, not just the uterus, even though it's a primary target. So the standard of care absolutely disservices women as well. But so the 8 more cases per 10,000 is the breast cancer risk. It was really the synthetic progestin that they're saying was the causative agents, or it may have been medroxyprogesterone. These hormones used were Premarin and Primpro. Those are the brand names.
I remember those.
Pregnant horse urine. That's equine derived, made from horse urine. So, I mean, that's what it was. And that was a real risk. And if you look at the study too, all the women felt better. They felt amazing. And there was a decreased risk of colon cancer. But no headline for that. No headline. So when we use this and replace this, we really, a lot of it's based on feel and to continual evidence that we get from conferences that come from this guy. We really, if you have any interest, a4m.com and any of their stuff in there is really the most up to date, and that's the juice of integrative medicine. So
you recently went to that conference.
Kid in a candy store.
I bet.
You would love it.
I would, because this excites me so much. So tell us about that conference, Andy, and some of the things that you took away from that you can share.
Sure. So this conference is done 2 or 3 times a year, usually either in Florida twice a year and then in Vegas in December. Vegas is their kind of flagship one, and it's actually done internationally as well. Governing bodies A4M, and they have speakers from all over the world come with different. This one was on specifically longevity and blue zones. And the blue zones are where there's 5 pockets around the world where people live the longest. And so everybody says blue zones, you drink wine and have Mediterranean diets and exercise. We had the original guy that termed Blue Zone speak at this conference, which is amazing. Dr. Oz was the keynote, and he has a very integrative approach to cardiology and talked a lot about what the really good markers were for heart health and not really cholesterol. Everybody talks about cholesterol. And so this conference, there's a lecture series and then an exhibit booth to where it's an airplane hangar full of the newest of new of everyone should be on this probiotic or everyone needs red light therapy. Really what I like to think about, the fun part about that was there's all these things that are there for you to purchase for your office or to implement with patients. And then there's this one little booth with nothing in it. And this woman's like, you can buy everything here, but if you don't take your shoes and socks off and meditate and drink water, none of this matters. I was like, she knows what she's doing too. It's very widespread. A Thai Buddhist, she was our third keynote speaker and talked a lot about spiritual health too, which I'm glad you brought up spirit. I cannot tell you that if you do not change your mindset towards what your goals are with health, you can create your sickness. I had one patient I initially started with, every time I saw him, I'm a little old fat man. I'm a little old fat man. And he repeated it. And I thought,
self-fulfilled prophecy.
Until you change, until now, completely different guy. And I'd like to say that our interventions, it's helped some, but a lot of it's his mindset towards it. And so spirituality and mindset, I think, is a huge, huge component. And that's a Blue Zone thing too. Most of them have some sort of religious aspect to it as well, because it brings them in the community and gets them involved with their spirit.
So where are some of these Blue Zones?
There's Japan's one. There's one in Italy. And then there's one, Costa Rica is another one. And the big one in the United States is Loma Linda, California. That's a Seventh-day Adventist community.
Okay. Well, my husband and I are going to Italy for 2 weeks, September the 29th. We've never been, so I'm so excited. We're going to come back looking so good.
Amazing. And too, you're going to, the wine won't make your head hurt. It's great. I say like I know that, but my sister just went and said it was amazing.
I can't wait. So I'm excited.
It's amazing.
And so some of those things you talked about, I'd listened to a podcast that you and your dad had done together, and you talked about methylene blue and low dose naltrexone, and my goodness.
The best. And you would never get a slide on that in school. What I remember from methylene blue from testing from a board certification is the treatment for carbon monoxide poisoning. But methylene blue has been my favorite addition to anything. And any patient that's been with me recently, that's all I talk about right now, because I immediately felt a difference from taking it. Methylene blue is synthetic. It's not a naturally made compound, but it was made to dye blue genes. And they discovered this in the 1800s, where they were looking on a microscope on the gene and found that it was killing viruses and bacteria. So they started using it to stain bacteria, to view it on a microscope to study. Then they started using it in the hospital, and it was curing people. So in the ER, if you don't know what to do, use methylene blue. It's kind of their phrasing. And so it really became the predominant treatment for carbon monoxide, but it treated malaria before hydroxychloroquine did. What I use it for is mitochondrial health. When you're thinking about longevity and aging, your cells have a cell senescence, so the cell aging. How you keep the cell going is the factory of the energy producing factory of the cell, which is the mitochondria. And it has this little parts with the electron transport chain, this biochemistry thing. Methylene blue flushes all of it out to make the mitochondria work better. That's a kind of simple way to look at it, but
it's the powerhouse of the cell is the mitochondria.
Yes, and the cell, and that is part of aging. That is aging. So that is a great modality if you're looking at anything, viral treatments, bacterial infections, fungal infections, but you can also do it for Alzheimer's reversal and prevention too, because it oxygenates the brain. Oh my goodness. It's an amazing addition. Low dose naltrexone I use a lot for autoimmunity because it works against interleukins. It's an anti-inflammatory. They call, a lot of integrative docs call aging inflammaging. We age as fast as we are inflamed. And low dose naltrexone can help reduce some of that through this process called interleukins. It decreases interleukins. What I like about these treatment modalities is that it's very little risk to the patient. Anything where you have very little risk, or I think it's so important for your medical provider to say, what can I expect from this, and what risk am I willing to take for this benefit? Same thing with hormones. And to say that I'm ready to jump in and take this choice, if a patient makes that decision, they do so much better than someone making the decision for them.
Yes, and I love the fact that there's little risk. And there's so many prescription medications out there and vaccines and things that, we're taking such a risk because we don't know. There's not enough research out there.
And we're told that this is it. Whenever I always kind of red flag question when it is a blanket statement for everyone. Everyone needs the flu vaccine. Everyone. Have you not had it? You need your flu vaccine. I always red flag when it's for everyone, because I think there's very little in medicine that is for everyone. So the blanket statements, especially without really explaining risk benefit, I think I don't think is a good thing.
No,
So, yeah.
I agree. I agree with you so much. So, Andy, this has just been, we could just go on and
Yes,
on.
I feel like I just kept talking. Thank you so much.
We could do a podcast on methylene blue, low dose naltrexone,
hormones,
oh my goodness.
weights.
But performance medicine, everyone, Andy Rogers, and what a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you. This is a wonderful podcast, and too, the fact that you're creating and investing in this community is so big. You're going to live forever. That's part of longevity.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Andy.